So we're back. Welcome back to the Police Spies Out of Lives live stream of the Undercover Policing Inquiry Day 14. It's Thursday the 19th of November. It's now 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're carrying on our verbatim live stream recording of today's evidence. For first-time listeners, the reason we're doing this is because despite repeated requests by court participants to have at the very least, live streaming audio from the inquiry, this has been denied to us. So we are doing it for ourselves. We were delighted yesterday to have with us Maxine Peake, and this morning we were thrilled to have Siobhan McSweeney. And this afternoon we are delighted to welcome Barnaby Taylor. Hello, Barnaby.
Hello.
It's lovely that you have agreed to this, not least because you are rather new, we understand, to the Spy Cop scandal. So thank you. You've got roped in.
Well, you're very welcome. I'm completely new to it. I was just saying to you, I'm probably the most new it could possibly be, because I literally heard about this whole thing when it came out in the press last week, or in the recent months that it's come out. So I'm really pleased to be able to help you out with this today.
So thank you very much. You are going to be voicing HN345 Peter Fredericks, who Siobhan took the part of this morning. And this morning we had the lawyer voiced by Rosa, one of the women who was abused by undercover police in later years, in the 90s. And this afternoon we have the lawyer being read by Jessica. Hello, Jessica.
Hi.
Hi. You up for this?
Yes. Talk about being roped in. Yes. Yeah, we've all got to take our turn.
Yeah, it's quite tiring doing it. I mean, have you been following the text as Rosa's been reading and as Lisa read yesterday?
Yes, yeah, I have. And it's the pauses that sort of give the greatest problem. Because like you, I don't like a silence, and so I have to make sure I don't fill it with sarcastic comments. It's going to be difficult, so I'll apologise in advance if I do.
Don't worry about that. And Lindsey is also here with us. And Lindsey, you're going to be taking the part again of the chair. You up for that?
Oh, yeah. Certainly. I feel like I'm getting to know him. I really feel like,
Have you got your suit on, and have you got your?
Absolutely. I got my wig, even though he hasn't got.
Doesn't wear a wig.
Yeah, well, he should, in my opinion. So, got me wig, got me suspenders. Sorry.
Now, Lindsey.
What are you trying to say there, Lindsey?
We're not trivialising proceedings, Lindsey.
That he wears suspenders.
We're not trivialising proceedings, ladies.
I meant socks. I meant sock suspenders, obviously.
Spats. Right. You see, Barnaby, the world you've entered into.
It's all right. I'm wearing mine too. I'm a wig.
So, Barnaby, what do you know about this? How much do you know? And we're hoping, as well as, of course, that this will have a huge impact on your future career. We're hoping that you will help us reach some younger audiences, because you're only 22, aren't you?
I am, yeah, I'm 22. And in terms of what I know about this, I probably know about as much as anyone who's, looked at the papers or looked at wherever you get your news from in the recent weeks, to be honest. I am ashamed to say that I had no idea that this issue was an issue until I spoke to you a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And I think that's, probably the same as most people in the country, possibly in the world. I think it's incredible that it's got to this point where we're having this national inquiry now, and people don't know what's going on, and a lot of people won't even know that the inquiry is going on, will they?
They really won't. I think that they might. I mean, more people will know as a result of this, I hope.
Yeah, well, I hope so, yeah.
But you're right. When because we're so immersed in it, I think we take, and our friends and family, of course, have lived with it with us for years,
Yeah.
many of us. So it is difficult sometimes to kind of get out of that bubble and the echo chamber that is of, you know, social media.
Yeah.
And to appreciate that, yeah, lots of people still don't know. I mean, some would argue, does it matter? That, you know, many people would say, well, it was all in the past, wasn't it? You know, you're going back to night. I think that's probably the sentiment of some of the officers who are ex-officers who are giving evidence now. You know, it's so long ago, and even the stuff that's coming up in the next tranche goes up to 1982, and even our stuff. I had a relationship with somebody for 5 years between 95 and 2000, and I can't quite process the fact that 2000 is now 20 years ago. So some people would argue it's historic and things have changed, but you know, do you see the significance and the relevance, the contemporary relevance still?
Absolutely. And, you know, I think it's one of those things, there are so many, and I think in recent years, in the last 5-10 years, especially, we've come to start actually looking back at historical, you know, crimes and issues like this, and actually bringing people either to justice or getting, you know, in so many different types of issues like this. You know, look at all of the people that are suddenly coming out of the woodwork and have been for the last 10-15 years. I think it's a really important thing that we do that, because you know, if you look at something and say that it's immoral, then it's immoral whenever it happened, isn't it?
Well, yeah, quite. I think that's a really important point, because that is one of the things they keep saying. One of the things that the police said in the opening statements at the beginning of the inquiry was that we can't judge the actions of the past by the standards of today. And I think that point, that if it's wrong now, then it was probably wrong then as well. You know, older people in my family are horrified to think that, you know, the police officers would have been doing any of this stuff, you know, in the 70s and the 80s as well. I mean, to be fair, we don't know, there aren't that many cases of what we suffered in these early tranches, not, you know, but it's the culture that's being established, isn't it? It's the sort of attitudes and the systems that are being put in place.
Also say it's more that we don't actually know about it, because, you know, like the hearings at the moment, we don't know the officers' names when all they give you is a cipher, and they want people to come forward from the groups that were spied on, and you know, there's no way of doing it. You know, it's ridiculous. If they won't tell the groups who was in their group that spied on them, and in some cases won't even tell the group, then it's impossible to say that. And it's not good enough just for them to say, like they did this morning, that, you know, they weren't, you know, officer wasn't, you know, didn't do anything wrong. There's no reason to think he did anything wrong whilst he was undercover. Well, if you ask them, they're not going to tell you the truth. You know, that's how it is. They're not going to say, yes, you know, had a relationship whilst undercover. You know, yes, I was an agent provocateur. You know, they're not going to do it. You cannot rely on them to, you know, to tell the truth.
The problem is, though, evidence, isn't it? Everything is judged on the evidence that there is. And if we haven't got people from, you know, the various groups to come forward, that, you know, if their memories aren't jogged, if, like Barnaby, you're saying, they don't even know about it, then it is very difficult to have evidence of wrongdoing when so little seems to have been written down about stuff. I mean, there just seems to be a general principle that unless you were told you really can't do it, then anything goes.
Which seems crazy, really.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see how that all kind of unfolds in the years ahead. The thing that I'm sort of waiting for with some trepidation, really, is that the language and that's used at the moment in these early evidential hearings is still fairly tame. I mean, but I do fear what we're going to hear in the late 70s and early 80s, you know, when Benny Hill's on the telly. Do you know what I mean? In that period, what they're going to be saying about women and about, you know, minority groups and all sorts. It's already, you know, borderline uncomfortable, isn't it? I don't know how closely you've been following it, but Jessica and Lindsey, there's been stuff, hasn't there, that's been said that makes you cringe a little bit.
Yes, and I'll be playing that part this afternoon. Yeah, it is quite awkward. But yeah, I just can't wait to see what he's going to say this afternoon.
So it should start scrolling any minute. It's 12 minutes past and we've got a 10-minute delay. So I did this morning and pressed something to check that it hadn't started and we were missing it, but I don't think we are.
An eye on it actually on the feed from the inquiry. So as soon as it comes up. So thanks, Barnaby. I didn't get a chance to say thank you. I came in a little bit late to the
No problem
to
at
the
all.
meeting. It's properly appreciated that you're doing this for us.
But I'm very happy to, and I'm pleased that I can sort of not only be involved but learn about it myself, because I think, as I say, it's important. It's a really important issue and an important inquiry. So I'm happy to be involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you said before, I'm embarrassed to not know about it. I think you know, that is a state that most people are in, even people who are who follow current affairs. Most people are quite unaware that this inquiry is going on, certainly.
Or they think it's all over. I often, people often say to me, "Oh, I thought that was all finished. Are you still doing that?" Or they still call it the case. That's quite annoying.
Yeah.
I haven't got a case anymore.
It should have actually been over 2 years ago, though, shouldn't it? So that, they can be forgiven for.
Yeah, that's true.
Thinking.
Yeah. Are you aware of that, Barnaby? That the inquiry was announced in 2014, and the judge was appointed Lord Justice Pitchford, who sadly died, but he was appointed in 2015, and it was due to report in 2018. And this week, or the last 2 weeks, have been the first hearings.
You told me that yesterday. I mean, I'd like to say I can't believe it, but I sort of can.
Yeah.
It seems that these things tend to take such a long time, and when it suits people,
Yeah.
But no, I think, like you were saying before, there's so much going on, and in the news, and even people that do think they keep up with current affairs, which I like to think that I do. It just things like this get swallowed, don't they? And especially if they're being held like this inquiry is. I don't know how anyone would be supposed to know that it was going on. It's it's just sort of very unfortunate.
It's also the nature of news, isn't it?
There is a lot going on in the world at the moment.
There's a lot going on. There is a lot going on. But yeah.
But it is unfortunate that things tend to be left by the wayside.
Yeah, but I think what is kind of sometimes missed about the significance of this, though, is that a lot of what is going on might have been a bit better if some of the progressive groups of the last 50 years had actually had the opportunity to work without being sabotaged and misdirected by police officers, undercover police officers.
Very true. Very true. I hadn't thought of that.
We just don't know, do we?
No, we don't. But that is a very interesting point.
Because part of the questioning that you'll hear probably today is like, to what extent did HN345 organise in groups? That some of them, like yesterday, Sandra was the treasurer, I think, of the Women's Liberation Front, and it's the extent to which these officers moved into positions of responsibility, and certainly later on, we absolutely know they did. They were key figures in activities and campaign groups. And so that question about the extent to which they have sabotaged progressive movements and essentially sabotaged democracy is fundamental, and it's quite ironic given that certainly these early officers are talking about their role in protecting democracy.
Mm. Well, yeah, I mean, completely, yeah. And but like you say, there's no there's no way we can know, but it does seem, you're right, it does seem likely that if some of these groups had just been allowed to get on with what they were doing without having people infiltrating them in such a way as this, who knows what would be going on in the world right now. We might not be where we are, and we might be somewhere a lot better.
Yes, and it's the democracy thing. It's like democracy's on trial, isn't it? It's I think that was one of our group's tweets at some point. Have you seen the trial of the Chicago 7?
Yeah, I have actually. I absolutely have. I'm a real courtroom drama. I love a courtroom drama. So as soon as that was on, such a great cast as well, I watched it straight away. Right.
So that should be. We think that, you know, if the inquiry wanted to really engage the public, they should organise a live stream of the trial of the Chicago 7 as a piece of scene sort of setting, context setting. You know, that's the American version. So to set some kind of context, we thought that would be a good way to engage more people. I'm not thinking, yeah, don't fully expect they'll do that, but.
No, I doubt it will, but no, I think it's it's incredibly relevant, isn't it? It's amazing that it came out a month ago or so.
Yeah.
So very appropriate.
Now, do you think they know that you're here, that we're here, and they're deliberately waiting, leaving us to talk? Oh, here they come, the police.
Someone's coming for you now.
Who are they coming for?
Yeah. Oh, there they are. It hasn't started, has it? We're not just.
And it's quite unusual because not even the Holden page is up, which says, 10-minute delay and stuff. So that something's delaying them.
Yeah. Makes you realise how skilled those people are on the telly. You know, like in the newsrooms, in the news, when they just talk for quite a long time. Do you know what I mean? When they're waiting for like an item to come up or something's gone wrong.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I'm feeling like I knew more than I do, so I could talk to you about it.
No, it's good that in a way. I think that the fact that you're new to it is really, really important, because there's lots of people that don't, as you say, don't know about it. And if we could reach, through you and other people, new audiences, that is part of the reason for doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think I'd imagine the majority of people are in the same boat as me. So no, I like I say, it's a shame, but I'm glad to be learning and doing,
So far sorry, Jessica, go on.
Wouldn't be too worried about not knowing anything about the undercover policing. I found out about nearly 4 years ago now, and I heard the word spy cops, and then about sort of half an hour later I found out that I'd had a relationship with one. So I heard nothing about it before then. So yeah, I wouldn't feel too bad.
Wow. Well, and that must have been a bit of a day.
It was. It's been a bit of a 4 years actually.
Yeah. Wow.
But yes, yeah. So I've been playing catch up with everybody. People like sort of Alison and Lindsey have been doing this for years. So I'm the new kid.
And how long after that relationship had ended did you then find out that that's what it was?
About 25 years.
Wow.
So yes, I was younger than you are now actually when I had the relationship. I was 19.
That is incredible.
Yes, it's yeah. Well, I hadn't heard. I think it was probably about 9 years since the initial story had come out, about sort of the fact that there were these officers within the political groups, and I hadn't heard anything about it. I wasn't in touch with anybody from the old days either. So yeah. So no, it's been a bit of a 4 years sort of finding out, and obviously like meeting all the other women and that. And I have to say, it's that's one of the things that we wanted to do in Police Spies Out of Lives, is to have sort of a support group for for the other women. You know, I mean, I wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for them. And, you know, it was important for us that anybody else that came out sort of in the inquiry and found out, you know, that there's someone out there for them to get some advice and some support, because it's not, you know, there really isn't another sort of help group that's another support group that deals with things like this. So
no.
And it is a particularly weird and unique experience as well. That's the thing, isn't it? That it's not, there's something very weird about the whole thing. Finding out the person, you know, you thought was your partner for however many years turns out to be an undercover police officer spying on you and your group and your friends, is not a normal thing to learn.
No.
And it has.
How long was it for you after you found out?
Well, I was with Mark for 5 years, and then he disappeared one day. And within a couple of weeks, because of a conversation I had with somebody, I suspected, but this was back in 2000, so this was before the stuff about Mark Kennedy had come out. My story is quite different, and I lived the next 11 years sounding like a raving lunatic. Well, I've lived most of my years sounding like a raving lunatic, to be fair, but particularly those years because I was saying I think that Mark was, you know, an undercover police officer. Then when the Mark Kennedy story broke, I saw that and suddenly thought, oh, this does happen. And then I was put in touch with Harriet Wistrich, and so there were 8 of us in that first claim. That first civil case, and then we had friends who set up a kind of support group for us and around us, because at that point, you know, we were fighting the case, and then as the years have moved on, we've taken on that role ourselves. So we're a campaign and support group. And the other issue, I suppose, that's just come to mind as you're talking is by not having any audio or video of the witnesses, it is even harder for other people who've been affected to come forward, because you know, people might remember a group, but they won't remember someone's name necessarily. But if you hear a voice, or certainly if you see a face, you know, a body move or a mannerism, you're much more likely to have your memory triggered, I think.
Yeah, and I suppose it completely doesn't feel like any sort of vindication, or at least not in the same way as it would if you did have the visual and the audio oral aids, like you say, to, you know, to be able to say, oh yeah, that person, and yeah, it must feel like this inquiry, having waited for such a long time for it, must be a massive letdown, really.
Doesn't matter that you knew, does it? You've got it. Got it quickly. Yeah. It's a I don't know. For me, it's a combination. It's a combination of, it is a vindication and it is a real victory. It's a victory having, you know, what I think, I can't speak for other people, but personally, it feels like a victory to have, you know, moved from whispering in my back garden 20 years ago to this being, you know, a public inquiry that's taken seriously, you know, by politicians and the media and others. So that feels a victory. It also feels a victory that even thus far, to have on the record some of the opening statements that were made by the lawyers and some of the court participants like Dave Morris and Dave Smith, that feels really, really important. And the solidarity that there's been between really, really different groups, you know, groups that in the past, you know, we're going to hear about evidentially over the different tranches of the inquiry, groups that are notorious for splitting, you know, notorious for not working together, for kind of falling out over, you know, different ideological points of principle. And we have successfully thus far managed to, you know, hold the centre and work together. And that's been a victory. But yes, it has been very frustrating as well. Lindsey, what do you think?
Sorry, I'm just trying to find out from people who are actually there what is happening. And it seems that the proceedings have only just begun there. So
we've got another 10 minutes to chat.
Well, I'm finding that out looking at Twitter actually. So it could be that it could be any second, because they can't tweet out for 10 minutes, can they? So it will be any minute, I'm imagining. So sorry, I wasn't tuning into the conversation there because I was trying to find out what was happening, if there was any reason for the delay. So yeah, I'm just keep trying to refresh.
Yeah, no, I know, and I don't want to touch anything on my screen for fear of pausing, stopping, I don't know, deleting. I'm not touching anything just now.
Yeah, I'm just keeping refreshing me link to the inquiry, just in case.
I forgot what we were saying now. What were we saying, Barnaby?
The disappointment about the inquiry, and actually that's quite topical. One of the biggest disappointments is the website, and also the tech that they're using for things like this. It's forever breaking down. It's just, yeah, it's been a bit of a disaster. It's like, their technology and their Wi-Fi is run by hamsters. It's ridiculous. And sort of very difficult to search the website for anything. And there's so many things that sort of our solicitors had said, that it would be better if we did it like this, but there's no moving the chair when he makes a decision. And sure enough, when the evidence starts, they see how it doesn't work their way, but hence we're doing this.
I mean, hence we're doing this. It really is mad, isn't it? I mean, I know we said it earlier on this morning when we were talking to Siobhan, but she described us as, she said, well, yeah, it's like you're on unpaid interns, which is mad. It's mad that we're doing this. I mean, it's really mad. Good, very pleased we are, but it's quite nutty.
To be fair, the activists have been unpaid researchers,
yes,
and all sorts. The inquiry wouldn't have half the information that they did if it wasn't for sort of groups like the Undercover Research Group and Cops Campaign. They sort of it's like they didn't really know sort of where to start. But I mean, obviously Missing thinks that he can get to the truth of the matter by just hearing what the police have got to say. I think that's sort of a fundamental flaw of the entire inquiry. But yeah, I mean, I'd be prepared to keep on doing this. If the inquiry pay us, I could do this every couple of hours. Although I haven't done it, I've not started yet. So maybe.
Well, you might not be starting. We might get Peter Fredericks might have decided he's not coming back. He's come back. And we're waiting.
Yeah, still can't see anything on
Twitter. And it says still can't see anything on the hearings website. So we're getting messages through. And the problem I've got in terms of my tech setup here is that my cable to charge my phone is not working. So I get after them. Yeah, I've got 12%. Any clue from Tom Fowler? Tom Fowler's our friend and comrade who is a wonderful live tweeter. He's a person to follow.
Our man on the ground.
One of the people to follow. So if you are new to this, if you're listening for the first time or you're new to this whole scandal, it is worth checking out a few websites and a few people. So, of course, policespiesoutoflives.org.uk will be one. spycops.co.uk will be one. And apparently it started. So I think we're going to get ready. I don't know why it's not coming through on my screen, but I'll just refresh just to double check.
No, it's not coming through on mine either.
Let's just refresh. It was high risk, that was, wasn't it? High risk for someone as risk averse as me. Okay, don't know why it's.
Do you think we've been banned?
Probably. Hope so. So spycops.co.uk, where we've got a timeline and information about statistics, the number of officers that there are known to have had relationships whilst using their undercover identity. I think it's over 20, and we know over more than 30 women who've been affected in this way. And hopefully 19 seconds it started, so I think maybe we'll be don't know.
Yeah, from what I can work out, no one can see it on the screens yet.
You old enough to remember the Hamlet advert? Cigars. Condor.
There's
Am
no.
I? I'm afraid I'm not.
No, of course you're not.
Silly question, that. Silly question.
I don't think they've ever been advertising tobacco products on
your
TV
lifetime.
while I've been alive, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's crazy.
Maybe the anti-tobacco campaign was not one that was infiltrated.
Maybe not.
The young Haganah this morning was interesting, I thought. I don't know if you picked up on that, but that was one of the groups that was reported on.
No, I think I probably missed that. I tuned in for the last half an hour or so.
Did you catch the bit where he was talking about a woman who he went for a drink with or had a drink with, who he couldn't quite, thought there was something a bit strange about her? Did you catch that bit? And I think somebody tweeted that they thought it was the implication was that she was a CIA spy.
Oh wow! Well, I mean, this whole thing is just is so new to me, and I mean, I feel like I'm in a film.
Well, if your career goes to dizzy heights and you one day get invited to be James Bond,
yeah,
this will be something to pull out of the archives for you.
I was talking about this with a few of my housemates last night, and we were saying, you know, about the parallels between this and a character like James Bond, and we were wondering whether, well, I'm wondering whether you all feel like perhaps a character like James Bond who reached such a level of being in the public eye in this around this time of the 60s, the 70s. Do you think that possibly had an impact on why this happened so often?
What, that it was glamorized, you mean?
That it was completely glamorized, and essentially that's what he did, isn't it, James?
Yeah.
And it still continues to do.
I think probably it was normalized. I think that was normalized, yeah. And I do think that some of the officers who we knew fancied themselves as a bit of a James Bond, yeah. Don't you think, Lindsay, Jessica?
Yes, I think it was seen as, they were special, I think, and they had these undercover roles and stuff. And I think, sort of power corrupts, doesn't it? And, they knew that they would be, there would be no comeback for whatever they did.
Exactly.
They went out. I mean, if you said to someone, go pretend to be someone else, doesn't matter what you do, no one's going to know you, doesn't matter, what crimes you commit or anything, because, we'll sort it out. It's you would hope decent people, it wouldn't make a difference to them. But, sort of knowing all the stuff that I do, I think it's, the kind of people that would do an undercover job like that, I think you're exactly the kind of people that would go too far. I think it's a definite sort of an arrogance that, they were sort of, they were James Bond sort of characters, ironically, spying on campaigns, and like we heard yesterday, sort of cake sales and cake bakes and jumble sales.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, that I just found hilarious. I can't. It's embarrassing, quite frankly. I'd be embarrassed.
I think she was embarrassed.
Yeah, well, at least she had the. At least she actually said that she thought her time could have been spent doing other things.
Yeah.
have been spent better as a traffic warden even.
I think the other issue about James Bond is that James Bond is supposed to be working for MI5 or MI6 or something, isn't he? He's supposed to be the security services, and this lot will police. And I think one of the limitations of this inquiry is that it's not looking at the security services, and the same law, REPA, that governs how covert human intelligence sources behave and what they can and can't do, applies to undercover police officers, and it applies to informants, and it applies to the security services. And so the bit of the puzzle that we can't see at all, and isn't even being looked at, is the extent to which these practices, in terms of, particularly our experience, the way women are used and exploited, the extent to which those have existed and are continuing to exist with no public scrutiny. We've got no idea. Oh, here we go. I'll stop talking and you're off. So
okay,
wherever you can.
Okay. Did you hear any racist comments in relation to reporting on people from ethnic minorities whilst serving with the SOS?
No.
Did you hear any racist comments in relation to the need to report on groups campaigning for racial equality?
No.
I'm going to move now to the evening reception that you describe in your witness statement. You describe a reception at which partners were invited. Was this connected with the SOS or not?
Oh, this was at the office, Scotland Yard, no.
Did you go to any SOS or SDS social events, either whilst you were serving or afterwards?
I don't recall SOS holding any social events.
Have you been to any reunions since then?
No.
I want to stick with the word union, but in a completely different context. In your statement, you talk about a colleague who had infiltrated the claimants union and obtained some social security benefits, which, if I have understood you correctly, he wished to return.
Yes.
Am I understanding your evidence correctly that this is because he will have obtained those benefits under his false undercover identity on the basis of false facts?
Yes.
Do you know what happened?
I don't know what happened, but I can tell you what the feeling was. I understand that the Dole office were contacted and they were told, we can give money out. We don't have the mechanism for taking money back in. I don't know what happened, but it is possible that there was some sort of adjustment made on expenses and everything else, so that at least the taxpayer would be not unduly disadvantaged by this process.
Right. I now want to ask you about a couple of your colleagues. First of all, did you know HN345, who I can name as Mike Ferguson?
At the moment, that name doesn't mean anything to me.
Our understanding is that Mike Ferguson infiltrated the Stop the 70 tour campaign and then the anti-apartheid movement. Does that ring any bells?
I'm aware of these two movements and I was barely involved. Things got out of hand, so I just stayed out.
Right. Did you know whether or not the SOS had someone placed in the STST, Stop the 70s tour, and the anti-apartheid movement?
No.
Can I ask you next about HN294, whose name we cannot use, so you may need to use the cipher list.
Okay. HN294.
294.
Again, no.
My question was whether, when you say no, you don't know that person?
I don't have any memory of meeting that person.
Right. Can I ask you now a little bit about where the SOS sat in the special branch organisation? Was it part of any of the special branch squads?
My understanding was it was just another squad. The difference was that this squad worked away from the office and the other squads worked from the office. And we worked undercover where their undercover activity did exist, but to a lesser degree.
We all know that some former members of the SDS, and I'm using that term to cover the unit's entire existence, engaged in sexual relationships in their undercover identity. When did you first learn of that?
Quite recently, within the last 2 years, since the beginning. I discovered this after I received a letter telling me that this investigation was in process and asking me to participate.
Were you surprised?
I was surprised that the matter had been raised. I have, if you like, it's a phrase in my head which helps guide me here. If you ask me to infiltrate some drug dealers, you can't point the finger at me if I sample the product. If these people are in a certain environment where it is necessary to engage that little more deeply, then shall we say I find this acceptable. But I do worry about the consequences for the female and any children that may result from the relationship. So yes, it shouldn't be done.
Those were all my questions, 3, 4, 5. If you stay there a moment, there may be some more questions for you. And I know we're going to take a break to enable people to consider your evidence. I think so. Sorry, ad-lib.
No ad-libbing, please, Mr. Barr. We're going to take a 10-minute break. There may be some more questions for you after that 10-minute break, but your evidence is, I think, almost completed. Will you be back in 10 minutes? Thank you, Ms. Purser. Thank you, everyone. We're now going to take a 10-minute break. Please may you move to your breakout rooms during this time. Thank you very much.
Well, what happened there then? We're still live.
Yeah. Sorry, are we product? Is that what he's is that what he said there?
He did say that, yeah. I couldn't believe that came out of my mouth.
What did he say? Can you tell me that again? Because what happened?
He said, sorry, go on.
Oh, if an undercover was infiltrating a drugs gang, then they wouldn't be blamed if they sampled the product.
Wow.
So,
and then went on to say that if there was, then went on to say what?
That basically it was he could understand that it might happen, but he feels sorry for the women and any children, you know.
But it was wrong. He said it was wrong.
He said it shouldn't happen, you know, but it's what can you really say?
Okay, so we've got 10 minutes, and that you're not. So now we have. What's happening now is that call participants will be asked if they've got questions, putting those to the solicitor, who will put them to the barrister, our barrister, who will put them to the judge, and the judge will decide whether our barrister is able to ask those questions. So we'll make a quick cup of tea break, shall we?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah,
and we'll come back. So we'll all go on mute, and we will be back. Help me with the time. What time will we be back?
In 10 minutes.
From now?
Yeah.
That's really helpful, Jessica. Thanks.
You're welcome.
In 9 more minutes now.
50, what number? 55.
Oh, it's 10 minutes. People can work out for themselves.
I don't care about people, I care about me.
I'll phone you.
All right, see you all soon. We're all going on mute now. See you in 10 minutes.
Bye-bye.
Bye. So we're back in the room. Barnaby, Jessica, Lindsey.
Hello.
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 Hello. And Jessica. Jessica's muted. Jessica, you're going to need to unmute in order to continue, but there you are.
Thank you. I was taking the part of meeting. I'm sorry, sir, you're on mute. Yes.
So I've just seen properly what he said. If you ask me to infiltrate some drug dealers, you can't point the finger at me if I sample the product. If these people are in a certain environment where it is necessary to engage a little more deeply, then shall we say, I find this acceptable, but I do worry about the consequences for the female and any children that may result from the relationship.
Wow. That is a fairly big statement, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Nobody else has said they find that acceptable. That's the first time I've heard any of the officers say that.
Perhaps we should make sure that he receives a copy of the apology that was made to the first 8 women from the Metropolitan Police, and all the sort of the breaching our human rights and stuff. Perhaps we could arrange for the solicitors to send that on to him.
I mean, what's interesting is the culture again, isn't it? It's not. I mean, he's voicing what so many of them probably thought.
Yeah, but now it's not acceptable to say.
It's quite shocking. When you were speaking it, I don't think I heard a bit of it, but I didn't, because it all came quickly, didn't it? Well, I wonder what we missed as well. We missed a fair bit.
I think we missed about 15 minutes of the proceedings.
What? And again, why isn't it working again now? Shouldn't it have started again by now?
It should have by now if it was actually 10 minutes, yeah.
Let's see.
Experiencing technical issues, I think, is the.
So there'll be a discussion being had as to whether or not there are further questions, won't there? And we might find there aren't. It might be.
I can imagine that that our lawyers would have some questions.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not started yet.
I'd quite like to come to read as Ruth Brander. I think that would be.
I think you will be. I'm imagining Ruth will be.
Yeah,
in there.
Could you imagine if he came back and said, no, they are not allowed to ask any more questions? You never know, do you? You never know what Missing is going to do.
That's true.
Let's just keep our fingers crossed.
So we're waiting. This is the point where we could do with music. I think perhaps the delay is exactly that. I think it's possibly to do with the fact that our lawyers will have questions about that. It's a very, I think a generous description would be that it's an unfortunate thing that he said. It's quite unfortunate, isn't it, that he said that?
It's such a strange comparison as well for me. When I read it, I thought, I mean, he could have said anything, and that comparison just is so just so inappropriate on every level, because the comparison of using drugs undercover is such a, the only effect that's going to have is on you yourself. Yeah. So it really just is a completely irrelevant comparison, I think. It feels like to me anyway, and that struck me as soon as it came out of my mouth. I just couldn't believe it that he'd said that.
Yeah. I think that's got to be one of the quotes, hasn't it? I think so far. But
I was quite generous about him earlier.
You've learned your lesson.
No more generosity.
You just always hope, don't you? You just always hope that there's going to be,
No, I've lost that now. No, I think the worst all the time. and so far I haven't been wrong.
Yeah, I expect the worst, because then you're not disappointed, but I still have a little bit of hope in my heart. But pardon?
Bless you.
Thank you. Issue. So there's now, sorry, you didn't expect this, Barnaby, did you? You thought you were just going to be reading. I don't think you're going to have to be on a...
That's all right. I'm used to waiting.
Yeah. Mickey Mouse LBC channel.
Yeah.
You should tell us about what you're doing later on after you've done this, Barnaby.
Yeah, well, I can if you want. If you're it's completely, it's a bit of a departure from this, but I'm going to be taking part in a rehearsed reading of The Tempest tonight at 7:30.
Fabulous.
Which is directed by Jenny Hall and starring Geraldine James as Prospero and Rebecca Hall as Ariel, among other brilliant, really brilliant cast actually. So it's on Zoom. Well, rather, actually, we're on Zoom, but you'll be on YouTube as an audience like this. And you can buy tickets if you so wish, £10 per household, and they are available at the Shake Festival website, which is Jenny Hall's festival that she runs normally in person, but unfortunately this year and all of this event will be on Zoom online. But it's really brilliant. We've been rehearsing a bit here and there. I mean, I've been a bit, I'm sure the others have been rehearsing a bit more, but it's looking really, really great. And it's a rehearsed reading, so it's not, there's a limit to what you can do on Zoom, but it's really, I think they've got the most out of it that they can, especially since Jenny Hall and her father, is continuing on her father Peter Hall's work in really finding the beauty in the words that Shakespeare wrote. And The Tempest is one of the most beautiful ones. The words are really, I mean, it's one of his final plays, and he got better and better.
So you're going from playing HN345 to Shakespeare. That's quite a leap, isn't it? But there's a strong tradition we have found of actors being spied upon. Oh, where's that coming from?
I know of a few, and it continues to happen, because I believe that they're, I guess they're generally members of the left wing, like you were saying yesterday.
So Vanessa Redgrave, presumably, and we know Ricky Tomlinson, and probably lots of others, and now you probably.
Yeah, I hope I'm not being bugged now in my room, but I may well be.
Probably not yet. There's probably just a file being opened as we speak, associating with known domestic extremists, I suppose.
Oh well.
Yeah, we like to wear that badge with pride.
If you give a damn about any issues, Barnaby, you'll be looked at some stage in the future.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? It's such a widespread issue, and by the very nature of it, no one knows that it's happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, yeah, and that's the inherent paradox with this inquiry, that there's a public inquiry into the secret state.
Yeah,
exactly that.
And we obviously don't know the current methodology. We know the past methodology because we were subject to it, but with digital technology, we really don't know how that surveillance is going to manifest, So it's remains to be seen how it will be done, and is being done at the moment.
I'm having soup brought to me.
Oh,
I haven't had my lunch
very
yet.
nice.
It's like, we didn't expect this. I sort of do wonder whether, well, I'm sure it's not, because this is my, Alison's paranoia kicking in, but it does feel a bit like they're having a laugh, aren't they? I'll just keep them going. See how long they can keep talking rubbish for.
They should know by now. It's hours.
Yeah.
There are 40 odd people also waiting on their YouTube stream for the stuff to begin again as well. So there's I don't know.
What they could do with apart from some actors to read this stuff for the future, they could also really do with kind of, I know it's public money and they don't want to spend too much of it, even though they've so far spent 30 million. But
60 million.
Yeah, how did that double? I don't understand what happened.
The counting what the police have spent as well, which is essentially public money, isn't it?
Okay, so far 60 million. They could spend a little bit of money on that, maybe a bit of PR, couldn't they? What do you think? Is that a waste of money? I don't know. Just a bit of communications, a bit of comms. A bit of comms here is all I'm asking. Just someone to tell us what the hell is going on. Nobody knows what the hell is going on. Muzak. That's all you want. You want something on the screen, don't you, saying, really sorry, public, for the public inquiry. Sorry, core participants. Oh, they're starting again, apparently. So whether that means we got another 10 minutes, really? Oh, man.
Oh, it could be, yeah, with the...
Or it could just start moving. So keep your eyes on the screen. Starting now. I think that means 10 minutes we've got. You're right with that, team. Barnaby, don't feel obliged. You just sit quietly. You practice your Tempest.
Yeah, you can't even do that because it's, you know, you're kind of revealing what people are going to see tonight. So we can't even ask you for a little rendition. Oh,
I'm afraid I'll just have to sit here and drink my tea.
Yeah, no, you drink your tea and we will witter between ourselves because we're quite good at that.
If you can slurp it just for, you know, some sound effect interest, that would be quite good.
Well, I also need to say it's about to be the end of school. I've got a school up my road, and every day at about 3:20, 3:15, you get about 50 year 9 boys walking down and scream at the top of their voices. So you may hear that.
Oh, good. Okay. Bit of Atmos. Excellent.
Yeah. So I'm sorry about that. I'm not being mugged if that does.
I wish they'd do it now.
Yeah, it'll probably happen just
as we start. Yeah. We don't know how many people we've got listening, but yesterday we had at one point we had more people listening to us than were watching the live stream of the inquiry.
Yeah, at 2 points actually we did.
Yeah, and then later on there were, you know, several hundred people had watched.
Yeah.
So I think questions are being asked, and I think they'll probably come through on our stream quite soon. Hopefully there'll be questions about the extent to which women should be considered the product.
Not sure if
that's for a long time, haven't we? That we thought we were.
I think you think you were a perk, don't you? I think that's how you described it.
Yeah.
Right, so it looks like Rajiv Menon is asking questions from what I can see.
Oh, Missy won't like that.
So if yeah, I don't think let's wait till we get it on the screen and we'll see what there is.
Rather than trying to make a guess at Rajiv's questions.
Yeah.
It might be quite fun.
It's the female, isn't it? It's the use of the word the female as well. Isn't that what he said? He said,
yeah.
I do worry if these people are in a certain environment, what kind of environment, where it's necessary to engage a little more deeply, that's definitely unfortunate, then shall we say, I find this acceptable. But I do worry about the consequences for the female. That's like Martin Goodman in Friday Night Dinner. That's what he says, isn't it? Is it when he talks to the boys about any interest with any females? Any females? The female
it's necessary. It's a necessary part that I don't. You know, if it's necessary, it's a bit like sort of, you know, if an undercover officer's life depended on it, you know, if he could, you know, he could have sex with someone, you know, if his life were at risk.
It'll be quite interesting now to see if he's asked to justify that statement.
I'm sure he will be.
To make it worse. That's
Yeah. Oh, God.
Let's see if we can pull this one back, or if it's just going to make it worse.
And also, I bet something, you know, what Barnaby, you were saying earlier about the standards, you know, judging the past by the standards of today. I bet my guess, my money is on that will be an explanation.
An old chestnut.
Yeah. I would imagine so. I would hope so. Anyway, that's what they should be. That's what we should be hearing now.
We should be hearing an apology really now, shouldn't we?
We should just be hearing it.
Yeah.
That would be good. Yeah.
Yeah. No matter what. Yeah.
I'm sure people would far rather listen to Mr. Barr than me.
No, that will never be the case.
I hope I haven't paused. See, I'm always worried that I've like paused it or something. But
That just did go on pause for
yeah, but that for a second. Yeah, I just
okay, right.
Just to double check. But we'll know. Someone was. I mean,
no, I've actually got the inquiries feed up next to ours. So,
is it working?
Nope.
Perhaps they're changing the hamsters.
There's a little cursor going up and down the screen.
On their screen.
On their screen. Oh, there was a second ago anyway.
So £30 million. You know, who does your IT? Is the question. You know, and do you get a refund?
Yeah.
Alison actually does better. I think
Thank you.
With our IT.
Yeah, thank you.
Inquiry team.
That is true. You know, if you're free at any time in March or April, Alison, you know.
Well, yeah, but if they don't sort the acting out, then we'll have to carry on doing that, won't we? I'm sure they will sort it. I think they will, won't they? I think they won't let. I think we said before. I don't think they'll be letting this happen again. Not if they've got any common sense, anyway.
Yeah, certainly embarrassing for them to allow the victims of undercover policing to actually make the proceedings accessible. That's not a good look at all.
I think we need to act it out if it happens again. I think we need to like make a courtroom and act it out. I think that's the only way that it could be better than the way we're doing it now, to be honest.
Yeah.
We could do an open air theatre. If the COVID restrictions are still in place, we could do some open air theatre, socially distanced open air theatre with a verbatim feed coming through your earpiece or something.
Yeah, I think we should do it from the Colosseum in Rome as well. So, you know, not at all grand or anything.
No, I've already got that booked, actually. I have already booked that, but we're just waiting on, you know, finding out about air corridors and things.
Or a circus tent. That's another idea for this inquiry.
What?
A circus tent.
Oh, a circus tent, yeah. Yeah. We've made a few on the on our Twitter feed. We've had a few little videos. One was a mashup of a Yes Minister's clips about public inquiry. It's all still very timely and very relevant.
You may not be old enough to remember.
No, you won't be, Barnaby.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Sorry
Yes,
to the younger listeners.
I have been shown Yes Minister by my dad, actually.
It's a must-watch.
Yeah, no, I've seen quite a few clips of it going viral recently as well for some reason. I don't know why at all.
It's clearly ours. It's clearly our bit of work that you've been seeing. It's viral.
Oh.
There are certainly moments where I feel I'm in a scene from either Yes Minister or like a kind of scene that you're not seeing on the telly, actually, a kind of scene off camera, do you know what I mean, from either Yes Minister or the thick of it or something like that. It certainly feels like times where, you know, we are, I know I keep saying it, but we are in a very surreal place, all of us. It's very, very surreal, this,
Yeah.
I think, for everyone involved.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make it onto the TV as a drama because people say it's too far-fetched.
Yeah, exactly.
That's ridiculous. That would never happen.
I mean, the James Bond thing was actually something that one of the judges said. I think it was Judge Tugendhat, wasn't it? Didn't he make some reference to James Bond in one of his rulings? Unbelievably. Not in a good way. I can't remember the wording now, but it's interesting that that was mentioned earlier.
All a bit of a game. Let's see, starting now, and that was at 6 minutes past 3. So 1 more minute and we should actually get it.
Okay, good.
Got to find out what Rajiv says.
Here we go, 3:05. I'm muting myself.
Ms. Purser. Welcome back, everyone. I will now hand over to the chairman to continue proceedings. Chairman. Thank you. Ms. Brander. Mr. Menon.
Sir, I should go first if that's all right.
Yes, of course it is. What is it you want to ask?
Sir, under Rule 10, I applied for permission to ask some follow-up questions on 3 topics. Firstly, race and racism, particularly in the SOS. Secondly, Operation Omega. And thirdly, the Black Power movement. They are all matters that arise from the questions asked already and the answers given by the witness.
They've been fairly thoroughly explored by Mr. Barr.
I won't be repetitive, I promise.
Very well. I'll take you at your word.
Thank you. Good afternoon, 345. Can you hear and see me?
Yes, I can, thank you.
In your witness statement, you describe yourself as of mixed heritage. Would it be fair to say that in 1971, when you were in the SOS, your mixed heritage was perhaps more visibly apparent than it is now?
It's not for me to judge. I don't know. I don't spend that much time looking at myself in the mirror.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You said that you didn't experience either in your time for Union branch of the Met or in Special Branch any racism. Is that right?
That is correct.
And that includes SOS, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, yes.
Would you agree that racism was a serious and widespread problem in the country at the relevant time, the late 1960s, early 1970s?
I am of the view that racism has been a problem since we, as a species, separated into different races. We see ourselves as different. We assume that because they're different, they are either less worthy or whatever. So this is nothing enough. We've had problems. Perhaps if I think of the question in another way, was I concerned in any way? The answer to that was no. I was never concerned or worried.
So you didn't hear at any time during your time in the Met any racist banter or any racist views expressed, or any speech about Black people that was either stereotypical or disparaging in any way?
I would move back from the term disparaging. We're going back a long time. I don't remember all of it. I think it would be fair to say, yes, I did. It was with humor. There were all sorts of things we say about even our loved ones, our children, our wives, you know, whatever. Sometimes we say things that are not exactly complimentary, but they can be said with humor. I think it's called irony. We just like a laugh. We like to explore things. I did not feel, if I can presume to try to understand a little more of your question, I didn't feel any hurt. I don't recall a statement condemning Black people or dark-skinned people or anything like that. An acceptance that there are cultural differences, yes. And on one occasion, it was put to me, one of my colleagues didn't like some of the work we were doing because, in his words, we militated against the rights of people who were not fully received by the wider society, but tried to operate within their own type following social conduct and standards that perhaps had originated on another continent. It wasn't criticism, it was just an observation. And one felt, yes, this is something we need to think about from time to time. It's very real.
Thank you. Could we look at the following document, please? MPS 0, it will come up on the screen, 345.
Pause a moment. You are about, I think, to ask a witness about a document that is nothing at all to do with him.
Yes, but it's...
I'm not conducting an inquiry into racism in the Metropolitan Police for the last 50 years. I'm looking at the SOS.
I understand that, but the document, if you're right about the document I'm about to ask to come on the screen, sir, it's an SOS document from the relevant time in which a particular view is expressed. And I just wanted to put that view to the witness and ask for his comments.
Because we have a little time, I will let you do it, but this is not to be taken as a precedent for what may happen in future. I'm really not willing to allow people to question other witnesses about documents that are nothing to do with them.
No, I understand that. It's just that we have very few witnesses who are of mixed heritage or non-white, and it seems an appropriate witness to ask the question of, that's all.
I understand the purpose of it, and on this occasion you may, but please don't take it as a precedent.
I understand. Thank you very much. I'll repeat the reference, MPS 039148. Thank you. 345, as the chairman just indicated, this is not your document, and in fact was almost certainly written in early 1969. In other words, before you joined either Special Branch or the SOS. Do you understand?
Yes.
You'll see that it concerns an individual whose name has been redacted, and under the heading Summary of the Conviction, it indicates that this individual was convicted at the Central Criminal Court in February 1969. And you see there are offences including incitement to riot and the sentence of 2 years imprisonment. Do you see that?
Yes.
And you see that prior to that, he had no previous convictions. Can you scroll down, please? A comment there about the fact that he was regarded as an honest man of good character. Can we scroll down further, please? MPS 039148/2, we can skip this bit and go further down, please. Pausing there. So the first paragraph is just a comment on the individual in the case. It's the next paragraph I want to ask you about. It says the man was active in the affairs of the Vietnam Solidarity Campaign and the Black Power. Then this comment, he has a usual attire of coloured people towards, he has a usual attitude of coloured people towards police and authority. And we can see that it was signed by Detective Inspector in Special Branch sometime after February 1969, which is when this man was convicted. It's that comment I want to ask you about, 345. He has the usual attitude of coloured people towards police and authority. What do you read into that comment? Is it just casual banter, or is that something perhaps a little bit more sinister?
Well, what I'm reading could be described as a broad brushstroke. There are white people, black people, yellow people, you name it. We're all human beings, and no group occupies one sort of social or moral space. There's a divergence, and it's up to us to live together. In view of this, there's a statement that is attributed to these people are to be mentors. They are not our tutors, so we tolerate them. We learn to live with them and hope they will change for the better.
Thank you. During your actual in the police, did you ever sense a perception amongst your colleagues that black people, or as this officer describes black people, coloured people, had a sort of general hostility towards the police? Was that a perception that you experienced?
Not at all.
finally, on this topic, as far as your specific deployments whilst you were in SOS, were any of them, do you believe created specifically because of your race? In other words, were you asked to target Operation Omega or Black Power movement because of your race?
No, I never came across anything vaguely associated with that statement.
Thank you. Turning then very briefly to Operation Omega, I entirely agree this has been dealt with quite extensively. Can we agree, because it wasn't made absolutely clear what Operation Omega was? In this right, Operation Omega was a small London-based group that was involved in taking humanitarian aid from India into Bangladesh, which was formerly East Pakistan, during the war between India and Pakistan during 1971, in which it's estimated over 1 million people were killed. Is that a fair summary?
India and Pakistan, it was a war between Pakistan West and East Pakistan. Could you repeat that, please?
That this was a small London-based group that was involved in taking humanitarian aid into what is now Bangladesh, what was formerly East Pakistan.
Yeah, that would be a very fair assessment, yes.
And you can't remember, is that right, who it was within the SOS who asked you to infiltrate this group?
Well, they didn't ask me to infiltrate this group. I found myself in this group. I reported the matter, and then the basically services, whatever they were able to do, were made available to me so I could do the job more fully.
But did anyone else in SOS, after you told them that you were involved in this group and obtaining information about this group, did anybody in SOS specifically tell you to continue to pursue that endeavour?
Not in so many words, but as I've said, we had this letter from Box, and it was decided that this was a good thing to pursue. So we just carried on with what I had already started doing.
What was your understanding of the nature of the groups that SOS was targeting during the time that you were deployed? What were the aims and objectives of the squad?
I think my view was that there was basically an attempt to reduce or eliminate unhelpful behavior on the part of certain individuals within these various groups. Any group would have its good, its bad, and it's ugly, and it's just a question of keeping an eye on things and making sure that we were worried that they achieved their objectives to help the people of Bangladesh, but we didn't want to see any violence or damage, any malicious damage on the streets, or any harm to citizens regardless of their color, ethnicity, or national standing.
Finally, on Operation Omega, there don't seem to be any SOS reports at all in your name or in anybody else's name that mention Operation Omega. Thinking back, and I appreciate this is more than 50 years ago, how many reports do you think that you wrote about Operation Omega during the time that you were spying on them?
I don't know. And that is the truth. I'd like to know, but I don't. If I can put it this way, writing a report is the least exciting part of my day.
Yes.
You get to the end of the day, I don't know how many coffees I drank after or anything like that, or wrote how many reports, but there were quite a few. I imagine 2 or 3 a week would probably be right, or maybe 1 or 2. But if the reports aren't there now, if they can't find them, there's nothing I can do about that.
I understand that, no blame attached. I mean, in terms of these reports, you say 1 or 2, maybe 3 a week. For how long a period?
I think it would have been about 6 months or so. Again, we're going back so far. I'm surprised to be told that there are no reports available, but I can't comment more than that.
Right, so moving to my final topic, 345, the Black Power movement. Again, did this come about accidentally, or did somebody in SOS specifically ask you to target this movement?
No, I think I just fell into that movement. I was doing other things, and you meet people and you just go.
During the time that you were in SOS or in Special Branch more generally, was there a Black Power desk specifically dealing with the Black Power movement?
Not to my knowledge.
In your witness statement, you identify a man who was your main link to this movement. Let me make it clear, I don't know his name and I'm not entitled to know his name, and I'm not going to ask you anything about his name. His name has been blacked out in the copy of your statement. I have. But I do wish to ask you this. Did that man, whatever his name was, did he belong to a particular organisation within the wider Black Power movement?
I'm not in a position to answer that simply because I would need to know the name if it would help jog my memory.
So you don't remember his name either?
Well, I can't, from what you've told me, I can't identify this individual. It could be because so much time has passed, or...
It's entirely my fault. I didn't make myself clear. You've named him in your witness statement. It's just that the copy of your witness statement that I have has his name blacked out. So I'm not entitled to know his name, that he's somebody whose name you provided the inquiry, 345?
Yes.
Shall I take you to the relevant paragraph of your statement?
Yes, please.
Would that help? Just give me a minute, please. I repeat, please don't mention his name aloud. All I'm asking is whether you can remember whether this man was linked to any particular organisation.
Or is that going to come up on the screen, or?
Yes, it may. Yes, it will. I'm just find the reference for you. 1 minute. The statement reference is MPS 0741109. If you could turn to page 26 of that witness statement, please. MPS 0741109/26, paragraph 67, MPS 27. Again, this copy also has it redacted, but I'm hoping if you read the top of paragraph 67, it may trigger a memory as to who you were speaking about. Does that assist?
Could this, am I allowed to give the name?
No, you're not allowed to give the name because the inquiry has redacted his name for privacy reasons. That's why I'm not asking you who he is. All I'm asking is whether he was associated with any particular Black Power organisation.
I'm not able to answer that. He was involved, as I say, with Black Power, and there were connections with Americans, but more than that, I couldn't answer you right now.
Very good. Do you remember earlier you were shown 2 reports, both of which had your name at the bottom of them, which concerned meetings of the Black Defence Committee? Do you remember that?
Was this earlier today?
Yes, earlier today.
Yes.
You didn't actually remember either of those meetings. Do you remember? Those are the meetings I'm talking about.
Fair enough. I did go to so many meetings that to go back 50 years and say this particular meeting at this place, that place, is sometimes difficult.
I understand. No criticism. Can you confirm the following? If you remember this, that the Black Defence Committee was an organisation that had been set up to raise funds in defence of Black people who were facing trial as a result of police oppression. Do you remember that? That's why it had been set up.
I don't know.
You can't remember?
No. It sounds right, but I don't have any specific memory.
No, I appreciate that you don't remember these meetings, but given your name appears on the bottom of these reports, can we be sure, therefore, that you must have attended these meetings, given your name is on the reports?
Well, if the report says that I was at the meeting and my name is at the bottom, then I would have been at that meeting, yes.
To be clear, to be fair to you, the reports don't say that you were at the meetings, but they have your name at the bottom of the reports.
Oh,
I suppose what I'm asking you is this. Is it possible that your name would appear at the bottom of a report about a meeting that you in fact did not attend? Is it possible or not?
if it doesn't defy any of the laws of physics, it's possible, but it would be hugely disappointing if there was an ulterior motive behind it. I can't answer. That's
very good. During the time, 1971, that you were working within the SOS, the major Black Power campaign in the country was the campaign in defence of a man of the Mangrove 9. Do you remember the case of the Mangrove 9?
not clearly, no.
It doesn't ring any bells at all. Let me see if I can help you. There was a demonstration in Notting Hill in West London on the 9th of August 1970, so a few months before you joined the SOS. And as a result of that demonstration, which was about your alleged police harassment of a restaurant on the All Saints Road called the Mangrove Restaurant, and as a result of that demonstration, 9 Black activists in London were arrested and certainly produced the riot. I don't know what I'm talking about here. And there was a defence campaign set up in relation to them, and their trial commenced at the Old Bailey in October 1971. In other words, whilst you were working for the SOS. Does that ring any bells at all?
I was not involved closely with them. I would have read about it in the papers. I would have known something perhaps, but I wasn't closely involved.
You say closely involved. Were you involved at all indirectly in the applying of that campaign or anything to do with that?
I don't recall that at all, no.
And you don't remember any conversations with any of your SOS colleagues or anybody else in special branch about this seminal event in the Black Power movement?
Definitely not, definitely not.
In addition to, you mentioned 3 something meetings in your statement. 2 of them I've taken you to already. The third was a meeting in West London where the speaker made a mention about there being somebody from MI5 in the room. In addition to these meetings, how many of our Black Power meetings or events do you think you attended during your deployment in SOS?
Oh, well, there would have been several. I would attend 1, maybe 2 Black Power meetings on the Sunday alone, and there may have been other meetings at other times of the week. But after all these years, if I couldn't give you a number.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, please.
I was just going to say, over what length of period are we talking about? Are we talking about 6 months or less?
That sort of thing.
Do you by any chance, just answer this yes or no first, please. Do you by any chance remember the name of the speaker who made that comment at the meeting about there's somebody from MI5 in the room? Do you remember the name of the speaker?
I definitely don't remember his name.
You definitely don't remember him. Thank you, 345. That's all I ask. Sir, those are my questions.
Thank you.
Can I indicate that Ms. Brander does have some questions that she wishes to ask for permission to ask? So I'll move away and allow her to occupy this seat if I may.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. The difficulty is that Mr. Menon and I share a computer terminal for these purposes, so he has to get out of the way so that I can sit there.
Don't worry in the slightest bit about the technology. It has caused us some problems. It's going to do so in future.
Thank you, sir. There are 2 areas on which I would seek your permission to ask questions. I think you will have been told, sir, that there seems to have been a slight problem with the transmission of the transcript of this afternoon's evidence, as I have been...
I have heard of that, and I was in part referring to that in what I've just said.
I see. Okay, thank you, sir. So yes, I've been asked by the recognised legal representative on behalf of Peter Hain and others if I might be permitted to ask some of the questions which they have been submitted in advance, which I don't think have been fully covered by Mr. Barr's questioning. And then on behalf of the non-state group, I have some questions for 345 in relation to relationships.
Well, as this is in the nature of an experiment, you may do so.
Thank you, sir. Perhaps it would assist in respect of my first question if we could have 345's witness statement up on the screen, and it's MPS 0741109, and it's page 4 of that document. MPS 0741109/4.
Is it page 4 on the computer printout or in the printed page 4? Because the MPS put a cover sheet on the front of every document which throws out the numbering by at least 1.
This is the correct page on screen, so it's page 3 of 45, but it's number 4 on the electronic document.
Yes, I do, yes.
Thank you. So 345, we can see at paragraph 8 there you're talking about your undercover work, and I believe that this is your undercover work prior to joining the SOS. You're explaining you'd find out things by about Black Power groups and Stop the Tour movements just from the kind of people you were associating with. Can you see that?
Can I ask you to ask that question again?
Yes, of course. I'm trying to establish the time period that you're referring to at this section of your witness statement. So you're talking about your undercover work, and it's been redacted there, but it was at the time at which you were finding out things about the Black Power groups and Stop the Tour movement, just from the sort of people you were associating with. And I'm just checking with you that this period was prior to you being recruited to the Special Operations Squad.
Correct, yes.
And if we could scroll down to the next paragraph, please. Today, up there. So we see at paragraph 9, you've said your association with Stop the Tour has ended by the time you were in the SDS.
Correct.
And we can see a passage there that has been redacted, but we've been provided with a summary of the text that's been redacted, saying it gives details of an incident during your non-SDS street crime undercover work where activists from Stop the Tour do not want to associate with you. Did they not want to associate with you because you were posing as being involved in street crime at the time?
I have no way of knowing why they chose not to be involved with me. I didn't pursue the matter when they told me they didn't want to have anything to do with me. They didn't give any specific reason. I just thought, there's no point in carrying on. I had other things to do.
It's right, is it, that your deployment at the time was in detecting street crime?
Yes.
And so in that context, given that that was your role, why was it that you were passing on information about Stop Tour and about Black Power groups?
At the time, I don't recall passing on any information. Black Power groups came later. At this time, I was involved in other things. I met all sorts of people from all sorts of walks of life. Amongst them, there were the people who were involved with Stop the Tour. They wanted some help. I agreed to help them. I suspect they heard from somewhere about a little bit more about me, and they decided they didn't want to associate with me. That is my understanding. But I didn't have a long conversation with them. I was out there in the street mixing with people, mixing with all sorts of environments. And if people didn't want to have anything to do with me, I just thought, leave them. You know, there are others out there. There's more work to be done.
I see. But if we could just go back up to paragraph 8.
Yes. Yeah, there it is.
So we can see there, you said, I would find things out by the by about Black Power groups and the Stop the Tour movement, just from the kind of people that I was associating with. Stop the Tour wanted to, and then details of an instance of direct action planned by Stop the Tour. And you said, I would have passed on this information as a matter of course. Why would you have passed that information on as a matter of course?
If I considered the information to be relevant, I would have passed it on. I'd like to make one thing clear about this interesting little passage I've got here. A sociable person. I tried to meet people and I would spend my time listening to what they had to say. And a pub is always a very nice place. People have a little more to drink than they know, and perhaps they say things they would prefer not to have said in public. And my position was, if it was of interest, I'd pass it on. If it's not of interest, I'd just forget it.
And how would you determine if something was of interest?
By whatever was going on in the environment at the time, you know. And I think everything that's going on, well, most things going on in society are in someone's interest somewhere along the line. I always was aware that I couldn't see the whole ship. I'd pass information on. There were senior people who decided whether it was worthy of pursuance or could be best be ignored. I just did my bit.
But this was even at a time before you were in the SOS. This was a time when you were just on street crime.
Absolutely.
And we've seen in the papers earlier that you were commended. Was that in relation to the information you were passing on?
Okay, that commendation or that compliment was there. It was a commentary on something I had achieved that weekend. I had met some people for the first time. I'd engaged with them, and they had invited me to join them and given me the address of their office and various other, and I got to meet them all, and therefore there was a compliment there. I wouldn't go as far as to call it a commendation.
I see. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said that that's for other people to decide, but it was a thank you, well done. And so, yeah, I was pleased.
And I think that was from MI5, is that right? From the security service?
That's what I was told, yes.
And the information that you were passing on about the Stop the Tour, did you know who that information was going to?
After all these years, I can't remember, but there were a few names that were in contact with me, and I'd send information up by whatever means. And if they found it was of interest, it would get back in touch with me. And on a number of occasions, they visit me and we had meetings and chats.
Did you think it was going to the Secret Service?
I don't know. Yes, I think I did. I didn't think about it that deeply. It was stuff going on. The system needed to know about it, and I was pushing the information up. And it would have been going to the security services, I imagine, yes.
And what about the South African security services? Do you think it was being passed on to them?
No.
Sorry, did you hear me? Oh, sorry, that's you. Oh, yes, I could, sorry. I was just looking on my computer screen to check that I'd asked all the questions on that topic that I had been asked to. So sorry for the pause.
That is perfectly okay.
So I want to come on to a different topic now, and it was, you were asked by Mr. Barr when you had first come to learn about members of the SDS having engaged in sexual relationships. And you said, I think you just learnt in very recent years.
Yes.
Yes. And you were asked whether you were surprised, and I think that you said that you were surprised that the matter had been raised. And I'm sorry, I'm now looking at a different device where the transcript of what you said. So you said, I was surprised the matter had been raised. I have, if you like, it's a phrase in my head which helps guide me here. if you ask me to infiltrate some drug dealers, you can't point the finger at me if I sample the product. If these people are in a certain environment where it's necessary to engage that little bit more deeply, then shall we say I find this acceptable, but I do worry about the consequences.
Yes.
Is that right? So you were surprised that the matters had been raised. Do I take from that that you were surprised that it had come out in the public domain?
I was surprised that there was any suggestion that it had taken place.
Oh, I see. So you were surprised that it had taken place.
I was surprised. Well, there was an allegation. I don't know enough about what's going on, but I was a bit surprised. If I could just sort of yes, surprised and disappointed and all of that. But at the end of the day, the bottom line is we are in a hugely convoluted environment, and it's one of these expressions I'm very fond of, Dave Allen to thank for it. You're gazing into a darkened room, you're looking for a black can, you see that may not be there, and that's the way we lived. So to be certain is to, I don't know, it's up to you. You've got very little certainty. You do your best.
So you were in very difficult circumstances, or would you envisage colleagues being in very difficult circumstances? And I think you mentioned drug dealers sampling the product. You think there could be circumstances in which you see that need arising?
I've only been given a few seconds to think about this. The question's asked just a few minutes ago, but it's hugely confusing. I do have a particular regard for the well-being of children particularly, and yes, for women and everyone else. And to me, the subject of an act of, you could call it deception, you could call it anything you like, it can't be nice. And I think we ought to find a better way than that. But perhaps my view is perhaps they had no choice.
And this is something that you think that others, when you were deployed, would sympathise with?
I'm very confident we never discussed this. It never came up. We weren't aware of this aspect of the process, or at least I wasn't.
Okay, thank you, sir. I've no further questions.
Thank you.
I think you may be on mute, sir.
Am I?
Sorry, no, not you, 345. It's the chairman.
It's my fault. I've done it again, and it's the second time today. I apologise for that. Mr. Sanders, did you have any questions arising out of the evidence that has been given?
No, thank you, sir.
HN345, thank you very much for assisting the inquiry with your memory of events of all those years ago. The one lesson I think you can safely draw from today's proceedings is never trust a time estimate given by a lawyer. Thank you. Ms. Pearson. Thank you, everyone. The Tranche 1 Phase 1 hearings for the Undercover Policing Inquiry have now concluded. The transcripts and associated publications are available to download at ucpi.org.uk. Thank you very much.
And a live recording of the transcript reading is available on Police Spies Out of Lives YouTube channel. Thank you very much. We're still live and very well done. Excellent.
I'm sorry. I feel I owe you an apology, Barnaby. I wasn't replying to you in that manner. I was picturing 345 and just awful.
No.
Sorry. I can't say things like that without contempt coming through.
No. It's fine. It was great.
What did you think, Barnaby? What's your take, just from, so you've been immersed in this mad world for a couple of hours now?
Well, I think that second, I think so these are your solicitors, are they? These are your lawyers asking him these?
This bit is, yeah, this last bit is. Yeah.
Well, I think they did a really good, I mean, I'm a little bit confused by the whole, what we were talking about with all the Black Power movement and all of that, because I don't quite understand the context, because I didn't hear all of this morning, but it sounds incredibly complicated. So I think but the great thing is it feels like your lawyers, they made some things quite clear to me. So if they can make things clear to me, then I'm sure they have to the people that it matters to as well.
Maybe we should send the link to HN345 or Steve McQueen's drama about the Mangrove 9.
Absolutely, it's absolutely brilliant. If you haven't watched it, then you have to watch it. Everyone.
I mean, how can he not have remembered that?
I know. I mean, it's especially. I mean, it was on last Sunday. He must have read the Radio Times.
Exactly. It's and I mean, and yesterday with HN345 or 348, whoever she was, 345 yesterday, she was going to, the homes of women in the Women's Liberation Front every week. It's like there's only about 10 of them in the group, between 5 and 10 of them. She was going every week for 2 years, and she says she can't really remember them. So,
well, that sounds unlikely to me.
It's really, yeah. Okay, well, another massive thank you to you, Barnaby, and a very big thank you, Jessica and Lindsey, as well, for your troopers. And hopefully we won't have to do this again. Hopefully for the next tranche, the inquiry will take over.
But they'll do it so badly that we'll end up doing it again.
It's you, Alison. It's you. Thanks, Barnaby.
Thank you so much. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good luck tonight.
Yeah, good luck tonight.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you.